I slowly started to fade out of my dream and wake up. I didn't want to wake up. I wanted to stay with Molly and Scarlet. We were at a carnival. Molly was holding my hand as we walked, her strawberry hair brighter than usual against her pure white summer dress. She walked barefoot with ease. Scarlet ran circles around us, never too far away, pink cotton candy in one hand. The cotton candy matched her baby doll dress. Excitement filled her eyes as she examined each game's prizes. There were a few people around us, but not many. Smiles on every face, fun everywhere. I very much did not want to leave them. I struggled with all my ability to stay in the dream. Nightmare and pain began to seep into the dream. Scarlet's laughing, with her eyes full of fear, her body on the ground. Blood, so much blood. A playground full of corpses. The stranger at the carnival began to laugh, their face full of malice. Soon, I struggled to wake up. Fought to escape. I felt the bed under me, felt the tears running from my eyes, but it still took time before I could blink the images away. I stared at the grey ceiling for a while. Grief flooded my mind. Scarlet. I had only one thought in my mind. What happened to Scarlet? I tilted my head, resting the sides of my face on the pillow. Hospital. I searched for a clock on the wall but found none. With caution, I sat up. I was still fully dressed. Not sure why, but I expected to be wearing something else. I had a few scrapes, dried blood here and there. I still had my watch on. I knew this wasn't right. They would have at least taken my watch off. Right? I'd been unconscious for several hours. I carefully set my feet on the floor. Still had shoes on. Cautiously, I walked towards the door. As soon as I reached the bathroom and saw the toilet, the urge became overwhelming and I barely reached and unbuckled my belt in time. I stood at the closed door of the room, unable to open it, terrified. The hospital room seemed safe, closed off from the world. The possibilities of what could be on the other side filled my veins with ice. Thoughts of zombie apocalypses and alien invasions crossed my mind. Part of me didn't want to know. So I just stood there. I just stared at the door. With time, I was able to force myself to take it one step at a time. I slid my hand over the cold knob, breathed, and turned the knob. Breathed more, closed my eyes, breathed, slowly opened the door, breathed, opened my eyes, held my breath. I cautiously peered out into the hallway and slammed the door shut. The hall was flooded with bodies and blood. Now I couldn't breathe. Tears streamed from my eyes again. I slid down the door, covering my face with my hands. I lost track of time. I stayed sitting there long after every tear had drained completely out of me. When I was able to breathe again and collect myself, I glanced at my watch. It had been over an hour since I last checked it. I forced myself to stand up, stumbled into the small bathroom, washed the tears and blood from my face, drank down some water, and prepared myself to leave. I took a deep breath and slowly left the room. I tried not to focus on the bodies. I tried to see them as just objects in my way. Just random objects, parts of the building. They were not shells of what was once a living human. I tried to convince myself I was not walking through puddles of blood, an ocean of blood. I pretended it worked. It took me a while to find my way out of the building. The streets were surprisingly empty. I expected corpses to be everywhere. I'm not sure how long I stood there before my feet were able to move again. I started to walk home. A feeling of being watched was overpowering, but I knew it was all in my head. I'd hoped it was only in my head. Just paranoia. From time to time I would hear laughter in the distance or from inside a house I was walking by. When I heard it, I would cover my ears and run as fast as I could. Halfway home, I turned a corner and saw a woman walking down the street. Her pixie-cut blonde hair was a mess. Tears ran down her dirty face. Her hands were shoved deep in her pockets, her head hung low. Her whole body was slouched. She didn't walk so much as merely shuffle her feet. I just stood there, shocked to see someone alive. She must have sensed me staring because she looked up, startled. I thought she might turn around and run away. Instead, she seemed filled with hope. She wiped the tears from her face and rubbed her eyes, almost as if to be sure she was really seeing me. She let out a short cry of excitement, stood straight up, and waved to me. She was smiling and letting out choked sobs. She began to run to me, calling to me. I semi-waved back in disbelief. I took a few steps toward her, stumbling when the laughter started. As soon as the laugh escaped her lips, she stopped running towards me. She covered her mouth and fell to her knees. Despair filled and seeped from every part of her. The laughter built and she cried more. She collapsed to the ground, shaking, crying, laughing. I ran the other direction. I was ashamed of myself, but I could not watch what was to come. Not again. Scarlet flashed through my mind like a flipbook. Scarlet laughing, Scarlet crying, Scarlet on the ground, Scarlet bloody. I kept running, not paying attention to where I was going. I was shocked when I found myself standing in front of my parents' house. It really shouldn't have surprised me as much as it did. They lived near the street I'd been running from. I wasn't even out of breath when I reached the house. Close, but not quite. I walked to the front door, stumbling most of the way, and stood there. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to find them. Deep down I knew they'd be dead. Deep fear grabbed a hold of my heart. They weren't the best parents and never showed love to me, but they were still my parents. I stepped inside. I forced myself to move through the house, forced myself to search for them. I had to force myself to focus, to look. I really didn't see what was in front of my eyes though. The house was the same it always been, even the walls, painted the same color every 2 years. Entryway was pristine and empty, living room was pristine and empty. I slowly peered into the kitchen, my eyes gliding over the tile floor. Pristine, empty. My feet seemed to move on their own, carrying me down the hall. The TV room entry was next. The room had an archway, not a door. I stopped walking. I didn't want to continue deeper in the house. The lights seemed to dim, the walls seemed to move, crawling towards me, closing me in. I took a step forward. I felt as if I was walking against a force that was trying desperately to push me back. I slowly allowed my eyes to scan the floor as it opened up to me. I held my breath and saw only floor. Pristine, empty. I didn't see them laying on the floor. I didn't see them laying there dead. I did not see them laying there dead. See, I refused to see them lying there dead. I did, however, throw up. I wiped my mouth off and stumbled to the kitchen. I grabbed the keys from the hook on the wall and continued to the garage. Both cars were parked perfectly in their assigned places. I slid into the closest car. Our remote control for the garage was the only thing in the center console. I clicked the button to raise the garage door, pulled the car out, lowered the door, and stared at it. I didn't cry, but I felt drained. I had no clue about what was happening. If it was happening in just my town, the country, or in the whole world. I closed my eyes, breathed, heard nearby laughter, and drove away. I kept asking myself, was it the town or was it the whole world? I slowly drove through the deserted streets, only a few bodies scattered here and there. I pulled up to the library and scanned the parking lot. Molly wasn't there. I didn't know where she lived, so I continued to my apartment. Thinking about it for a moment, I parked on the street in front of the building. I doubt anyone would make a fuss about it. I entered my apartment expecting to feel some kind of comfort, but I only felt isolated. I sank into my chair to think. I might have dozed off for a while before I stood, stretched, and left my apartment, not bothering to lock the door behind me. I made my way down the hall, into the hall of the next floor, trying doorknobs as I went, until I finally found an unlocked one. I didn't bother knocking. A body laid in the kitchen, phone dropped on the floor nearby. I turned on the TV and began flipping through the channels. The news station showed nothing, either empty sets, static, black screens, or just other random things of the sort. All pre-recorded programming continued. It made sense, but somehow scared me, filled me with dread. Out of nowhere, an idea flooded my mind. I quickly returned to my mum's car and sped off. I parked in front of the library entrance, braced myself to wade through the blood and bodies, and walked inside. However, it was mostly empty. A few patrons and co-workers laid in bloody pools. I headed for my boss's office, and with ease found the personnel file and paperwork that contained Molly's home address. I took the whole paper. I knew the area she lived in and had no problem finding her house. I don't remember driving there. I went from walking out of the library to sitting in my mum's car at Molly's empty driveway. Her house was beautiful. Waist-high, pale yellow fence surrounded her yard. Her grass was dark green and lush. Multicolored rose bushes dotted the yard along the fence. Scarlet had a swing set and slide. I stared at the swings swaying in the breeze. I pictured Scarlet on them, even though she would never do so again. With numb legs, I managed to make my way to Molly's front door. It was pale blue with a white trim, like the rest of the two-story house. I knocked on the door, pounded on it with no answer. It was unlocked. I didn't bother to call out. There were no cars in the driveway, no answer on the door. Logically, the house would be empty. I searched each room. It was lived in, but clean. Warm, welcoming, homey. Soft purple walls, almost like an Easter egg, brought life to the living room. The furniture looked comfortable. Books filled rows after rows of shelves. A wooden box shaped like a treasure chest overflowed with toys. I broke down in Scarlet's room. Her room was a fairy tale. The walls were painted with rolling forested hills, a large castle that reached up to the ceiling, friendly adorable dragons, knights with their horses, a wizard and a crystal-topped staff. Birds, dragons, and clouds filled the sky. Her bed was fit for a princess, with a pink canopy, pink curtains pulled back to the headboard, fluffy white pillows and soft patchwork quilt. The quilt was handmade, each patch different. Animals, shapes, flowers, trees, and much, much more filled every love-filled square. I fell to my knees on the soft, pale green carpet and cried while time faded away. Molly's room was elegant. Only she could have designed it. The walls were a soft blue-grey, almost a marble texture to them. Her bookshelves, dresser, bed and bedside tables were made from a rich, dark redwood. Her blankets were dark blue-grey. Pictures of beautiful landscapes filled the walls. Forest, with deer drinking from a lake, bunnies in a field of tall grass, dark blue ocean reflecting a star-filled sky. I knew which side of the bed was hers instantly. A paperback book, peppermint lotion, and a stuffed animal given to her by the staff of the library when she announced her pregnancy lay on the bedside table. The kitchen was taken straight from a country home magazine. Chestnut brown cabinets and cupboards matched the wooden table. The tan countertops matched the marble floor. A black cat clock ticked away on the wall. Its eyes and tail glided smoothly back and forth. A flower vase near the stove was filled with wooden spoons, spatulas, and cooking spoons. Cow-shaped containers sat side by side on the counter. A Cookie Monster cookie jar sat in the middle of the table. Next to it was a half-eaten plate of lasagna and a glass of milk. Someone had been here and left in a hurry. Too much of a hurry to remember to lock the door. Everything suddenly became too much for me to handle. I ran back into Molly's room, threw myself on her side of the bed, crawled under her blanket sobbing silently, curled up with her pillow, and fell asleep.